Well, hi, I'm Evan Anderson at the University of Minnesota, and so far we've gone through a few of the resume basics that you want to use, as well as a general format for a resume. Next, I would like to ask about what are the common problems that you see with resumes?
Well, let me introduce myself again. I'm Professor Pete Carr at the University of Minnesota Chemistry Department. There are a number of answers to that question. It is an important question. One of the things that some students encounter and have a hard time dealing with in a resume is if there's what I would call a gap in your education dates. Maybe at the end of undergraduate school you took a year or two off. There are many reasons why you might want to do that. If you have a clear explanation, for instance, if you joined the Peace Corps, if you did some sort of national service, or even if you really needed a break from school for a couple of years, I'd come right out and say that. What you don't want is a big break that's unexplained. It's bound to come up if your resume is pursued. I've seen far too many resumes that list every Microsoft product known to mankind, and other pieces of common software. This doesn't do you any good. Now, don't misunderstand me. There are highly specialized pieces of software that are very pertinent to areas of expertise. There's a huge number of advanced programming languages that people in computational chemistry use. There are specialized softwares related to almost any modern instrumentation. If you are truly an expert in that area, then you should be talking about that software, giving some information proving that you know the details. I've also seen many resumes where some vague description of career objectives is stated. And in my opinion, unless you've got a really good reason for putting in career objectives, don't do it. They may overly restrict you and knock you out of the game for a particular position. Now, further along in your career, when you've had one professional job and are thinking of moving along in your career, you may get more specific about what you really want to do. Presumably your first job was truly as a professional, using what you've learned in your postdoc and graduate school. Maybe later on you want to get into management and away from the bench, or maybe you want to get more into using your expertise in a particular field like NMR, but want to sell NMRs. Well, that's certainly a real career objective. It's a very specific one, and if the job is in technical sales, you could say, well, I really, one of my objectives is to get into technical sales, especially in fill in the blank, hopefully relevant to that company. Another thing that is okay, but is somewhat of a space waster, is a list of 3 or 4 references, people who will write letters for you. That's eventually going to come out if you're invited for an interview, or if they're interested in your application. They'll want to know references. A word of advice there is, do not list anybody as a reference unless you have spoken directly with them and gotten their permission to do that. You do not want to get somebody listed who is not willing to write a reference for you. That's a bad idea. That's going to require a lot of explaining if you can't get them to produce a letter or answer the telephone. High school jobs should not be listed unless somehow they underscore your soft skills, your leadership ability, your persistence in getting a job done, something of that nature. I don't think you need to go back to your early youth. So those are some common problems that you just should avoid.
So we talked a little bit in the last video about how to explain quantitatively what you have done in graduate school. What would you recommend when wording these type of phrases?
Now, wording is really an important issue. You want to stress action words. Let me do this by way of an example. I designed and executed the total synthesis of 3 new heterocyclic amine compounds in less than 4 months. These compounds were then tested in their biological potency. This work led to 2 publications. That's a good statement. Here's how not to do it. Studied the synthesis of new compounds. So what? That's vague, it's poor, it doesn't show a whole lot of action. Studied is kind of a weak verb. So what I'm saying is you want to stress your results and the actions that follow from those results. Again, if for instance the publications led to a provisional patent or actually a real patent, then you certainly want to say that in an industrial application. That's really important stuff. Overall, you want to showcase your technical mastery as it pertains to this particular job. The soft skills I've mentioned: initiative, leadership, communication ability. Some people are really great speakers. I think you could say that I've been complimented on the seminars that I gave, stuff like, but do it using the right words. You want to showcase your awards and achievements, your extracurricular activities, leadership through mentoring students, graduate students, undergraduate students. If you've been involved in volunteer work and outreach activities, which many people are, if you've been an officer in some graduate student committee, chaired a committee or chaired a society, perhaps the young chemist part of the ACS, we want to mention those things. These extracurriculars are not entirely just pointing at these skills, but they can make you memorable and give an interviewer some way to open up a conversation with you. It's always awkward, to dive right into the details, and you may strike a relationship by mentioning some common extracurricular issues in your resume, but don't spend too much space on it.
So you mentioned that stressing action in what you write in your resume is very important. Are there any hints you would give of how to do that?
Well, I pulled out some words that you should probably avoid and some words that you should probably use that convey a sense of action and leadership. That you can go and look these up on the internet. They're very lengthy lists, but some words that I think are really key for a chemistry position are words like created, envisioned, championed. You were the person in the group who pushed that project. You developed. new compounds, you develop new techniques, you develop new kinds of instrumentation. You led a group, a subgroup of your research group. You synthesized compounds. You supervised. These are all power words. Words like worked, studied, completed, experienced, learned, provided, they're kind of blah. I'd stay away from them. But again, these are just a few words. There are good sources of these writing hints out there.
So that's been very helpful. Is there anything else that you would like to discuss?
Well, we've talked mainly about stuff that I thought you should include, and I think I want to spend a minute or two talking about what you ought not include or should not include. You don't need to talk about your age, your birth date, your race, your religion, gender, sexual preference, marital status. You do not want to give your social security number because you have no idea who's going to be dealing with this resume. The company may not treat it with sufficient security that it, well, you know how it is these days with the internet. You don't want to get into your national origin, salary history, or requirements, certainly not on a first job. Certainly not. Reasons for leaving your last job, probably not a good idea. Your medical history, that they're not allowed to ask about that, and I don't think you should bring it up on a resume. May eventually have to talk about things, but not on your resume. And as I said before, you should avoid discussion of career objectives. Again, certainly on a first position. Unless you can really write the career objectives being strongly focused on the specific position being advertised, if you can turn that into why you are uniquely qualified for that job, then do it. One last knot, if you will. I would not send out a resume that you have not let your advisor look at. In my opinion, that would be really a dumb thing to do. It could backfire on you. And eventually you're going to need your advisor's support to get the job. He or she certainly will be one of your referees. And of course you want to take advantage of his association with that company if it exists, and you want to make sure that he will support you and write a letter for you. So I would certainly show the resume to your advisor. I really want to thank Dr. Marty Rigney of Ecolabs in St. Paul and Dr. Ravi Ranatunga of Proctor & Gamble for their input on this little exercise in resume preparation. Both of them have a great deal of expertise in hiring doctoral level personnel for their companies over many years, and they have been extremely helpful over the years in helping me provide guidance for my graduate students.